Welcome to the Mad Max Mega Review! I am a massive fan of the Mad Max franchise. Seriously, I love every single second of this weird, crazy, sexually confused franchise that is Mad Max. And as a fan of the franchise and as an Aussie, I feel it is my duty to educate as many people as I can about this franchise leading up to the new Fury Road movie. And Fury Road is looking like it's going to be one crazy ride. I mean, look at this picture from the trailer. Ouch! Is that a chastity belt? What? And this character's name is Victus Erectus. I'm not joking, that's his actual name in the movie. It's gonna be great. So we're gonna cover all three movies and the new Fury Road trailers in this and the next three videos. So if you're from the future, you can click on any of these right now, but be sure to check back on the channel within a day or so for the next. But I'll link them again at the end. So let's talk about the first, the original Mad Max. No. That's not the first one. Actually, it should be said that the movie that a lot of people think is the first Mad Max is actually the second. Road Warrior is the second. A lot of people don't know there actually was another movie that came out before that. Not surprising a lot of people don't know about it because it literally did not exist anywhere outside of Australia for about 30 years. It was not until the Blu-ray box set was released that people outside of Australia got to see the original Mad Max for the very first time. The movie did have a very limited release in some American cinemas, but it wasn't very well marketed, so not many people saw it, and those who did see it didn't really like it very much, because apart from some of the other problems we're going to talk about, additionally, some idiot thought it would be a fantastic idea to redub the entire movie in American accents. Come on, man, seriously? The Aussie accents are what give these movies their flavour.
It's got a cracked timing case cover, it's broken a couple of teeth off the timing gear.
The radiator's damaged at the core.
The radiator's damaged at the core.
It's got a cracked water pump.
It's got a cracked water pump.
And a fractured injector line.
It's got a fractured injector line.
Well, what does all that mean?
Yeah, okay, but what does that mean? What does that mean?
And it's probably a good thing that nobody did get to see that because it's really not very good. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that it's bad, but interestingly, it's one of those movies that once you understand the stuff that was happening behind the scenes, it actually makes the movie so much better. So I'm going to share all of those weird and wacky behind the scenes stories with you. But as you'll see, some of these stories are so over the top that I'll just leave it up to you as to whether you want to accept them as true or not. First thing that can be said about the original Mad Max is that it's a movie that's totally confused with itself. It's not sure whether it's a post-apocalyptic world, whether it's a dystopian future, or whether it's in the near future with just a different system of law and government. For example, the weirdo biker gang of bad guys in this, they attack a car and they gang rape a girl, and when Max and his partner arrest one of the gang members at the scene, his sleazy lawyer shows up and gets him off on a legal technicality. Why are there lawyers in a post-apocalyptic world? I mean, just lynch the guy. So apparently in Mad Max, this world is lawless enough to allow a gang like this to roam around and murder people randomly, but it's not lawless enough to remove the need of lawyers? Why are there lawyers in a lawless world? Plus, the movie does suffer a bit from Phantom Menace syndrome, in that we don't really have a main character, we've got two. Now you might think that since the movie is called Mad Max, that it would be about Max. But no, it isn't. Actually, the first half of the movie focuses on Max's best friend, a character called Goose, with Max taking the back seat. And again, with a title like Mad Max, you would expect that Max is mad. You'd expect him to be a loose cannon, a hothead, a wild man, but he isn't. He's actually quite reasonable and calm for the majority of the movie, and it's actually Goose that is the loose cannon. Just take a look at how he reacts when the sleazy lawyer walks out with the gang member.
Jesus Christ, you're not going to let him walk out the door, Fifi.
That's exactly what you're going to do.
Shut up. I'll tell you. Keep on, Johnny. Keep going. Come on, it's all right.
He's the one who flips out about it, not Max. Max doesn't really care. But surely, when Max's best friend Goose is horrendously burned alive by the gang and is hanging by a thread in the hospital, surely now Max is going to live up to this movie's title, and he's not just going to let these criminal scumbags get away with it. He's going to quit his job and live quietly in the country and kind of forget that the whole thing ever happened. Like a hero. Yeah, it's actually not until the gang finally shows up and kills his wife and his kid that he actually becomes Mad Max and goes out for some revenge in like the last 10 minutes of the movie. So as you can see, yes, this movie's got a lot of problems. But despite all of the lack of focus as to what kind of world this is, the uncertainty about who the main character is, and the lack of Mad Maxing in a Mad Max movie, I still would recommend that you watch this movie if you can get your hands on it for two main reasons: the villains and the car chases. Let's talk about the villains. These guys are so completely over the top that they are easily the most entertaining part of the movie.
Do you see me, toe cutter? Do you see me, man?
Especially the leader of the gang, a guy called Toe Cutter, who at no point ever actually cuts anyone's toes off. But don't worry, because he makes up for it by doing lots of other super intimidating bad guy stuff, like murdering defenseless mannequins, mercilessly stealing people's ice cream, getting frightened by old ladies,
Hold it right there!
I hate guns.
and awkwardly touching people on the face.
The Night Rider. That is his name. The Night Rider.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. His character is such a freak that he is just hilarious. And the actor who's playing Toe Cutter here, he just pulls out all of the stops. Like, try to count how many different accents he does over the course of the movie. And not to mention that in the moment before his death, his eyes literally bug out of his skull. It's only there for a second, but it's there. Toe Cutter as a villain is a joke, but that's kind of why you love him. And I'll tell you what else. The actor who plays Toe Cutter here is in the Fury Road movie. Yes, he is playing a totally different character called Immortal Joe. That's him! It's the same guy! So he's gone from being totally unintimidating to really, really, really intimidating. So how awesome is that? The same actor. I'm so happy about that. Another reason why you should definitely watch this movie is the vehicle stunts. While they're not super spectacular compared to other movies, they're amazing because these stunts were filmed with virtually no safety precautions at all. Because the movie had such a small budget, they couldn't even afford safety precautions, so they just went out and they just did it, most of the time without even a license to film. So when you're seeing two cars driving at super fast speed and ramming into each other, that is exactly what you're seeing. The only thing that was between these guys and getting horribly injured in a crash was the skill of the stunt drivers. And that makes all of these driving scenes so much cooler to look at because there was real danger in filming them. In fact, the local police knew they were doing this, so they kept doing patrols trying to catch them in the act so they could shut the movie down. So George Miller, the director, he had to put out lookouts on different sections of the roads with walkie-talkies to warn him if the cops were coming, so they could leave and they wouldn't get caught. And get this, the budget was so low that George Miller, he did some math and he worked out that it was actually cheaper for them to pay the extras with beer rather than agreeing on a wage. Like, hey, come work as an extra on this movie for a day and we'll give you a slab of beer at the end of it. A slab is 24 cans, by the way. And this was also part of how they avoided the cops during the filming, because a lot of the extras for Toe Cutter's gang were from actual bikie gangs, like the Australian chapter of the Hells Angels and the Vigilantes. So, of course, these guys, they looked the part already. They were happy to get paid just in beer. And most importantly, they could double as stuntmen, and they also weren't going to report it if they got injured. And a good thing too, because there was a lot of broken legs, broken thumbs, broken noses, but nobody reported anything to the cops, so the movie could finish filming. There are even reports that they would use slabs of beer to bribe ambulance drivers so that they wouldn't say where the accident happened, so they could finish filming a scene. I'm not sure about that story though. I mean, that seems a bit far-fetched to me. So take it with a grain of salt. But there definitely was like a whole Wile E. Coyote element to the making of this film. A lot of the props that you see were stolen from the front yards of people's houses. They actually strapped a military rocket to a car to make it spin out when it crashed, and you can see it in the film. And when Toe Cutter dies in the head-on collision at the end, oh, spoiler alert, they paid a truck driver, probably with a slab of beer, to drive into and smash the bike with his truck, but he was worried about damaging the front of the truck, so they created a whole fake front and painted it to look like the actual front of the truck, and it looks terrible, but strangely, you don't really notice it unless somebody points it out, so good job, I guess. Finally, this was Mel Gibson's first movie role, and the story as to how he got the part might kind of explain why the movie sort of has two main characters. Here's the story. The guy who plays Goose, Max's best friend, was actually Mel Gibson's best friend in real life at the time. And the only reason that Mel Gibson even went to the audition was to support his friend who was going for the part of Goose. Afterwards, one of the casting people saw Mel Gibson hanging around waiting for his friend, and he was hungover from a long night of drinking, of course, and his face was all busted up from being in a bar fight the night before. Of course, this is Mel Gibson we're talking about. And the casting crew, because they were looking for like weirdo freak people to be in Toe Cutter's gang, one of them told Mel, hey, why don't you come back next week and we can, see about getting you as an extra or whatever in the gang. But when he did come back next week, he was sober then, so he had that sort of funny, charming Mel Gibson wit that he used to have before he turned into a total anti-Semitic lunatic. And his face had healed up, so now he was displaying his ruggedly handsome leading man looks that he had in his younger years. And he just blew everyone away in the casting room. So I think that's the reason why the first half of the movie is focusing on Goose, and then it switches over to Max in the second half, because I reckon that Goose was originally supposed to be the main character, but they switched it over to Mel Gibson's character because they realized they could do better basing a franchise around him. And I guess they were right about that. So, the original Mad Max. Almost unknown by a lot of people and almost unrecognizable as what we now know as Mad Max, but it's still a fun, so bad that it's good kind of movie with quirky villains helping to ease the squeeze of these long stretches where there's not much that's happening in the movie. But if you're a fan, it's definitely fun to see how it all started and fun to wonder how this movie was even made without somebody getting killed or getting locked up for the laundry list of laws that they obviously broke in making this movie. So I'm just going to leave you with one last Mad Max fact. In the final scene of that movie, Max handcuffs a gang member to a crashed car that's leaking fuel and is about to explode, and he gives the guy a hacksaw and he tells him,
"The chain in those handcuffs is high tensile steel. It'll take you 10 minutes to hack through it with this. Now, if you're lucky, you can hack through your ankle in 5 minutes. Go."
You're bad.
Well, sitting in the audience watching this scene at a drive-in movies when the movie came out were a couple of young Aussies named James Wan and Lee Winnell, who liked that scene so much that when they, years later, made a movie of their own, they decided to include a similar scene as an homage. What was the movie? Saw. So come back soon so you can watch my review of the very best Mad Max of the franchise, The Road Warrior. Or if you're from the future, you can just click on any of these right now and watch whichever ones you want. So I am Bandit, this is Bandit Incorporated, and until next time, I will see you in the comments.